Kiriki trudged to the stream that exhaustion. His hands were calloused, his feet cracked, and his spirit carried the weight of endless labor. Yet his heart still held the ember of kindness, a flicker of light in a world that had grown unbearably dark. The sun bore down on him and the other slave boys as they filled heavy clay pots with water. Laughter and whispers from the nearby bank caught their attention. A group of women, dressed in fine wrappers and adorned with jewelry, stood near the edge of the stream, their faces glowing with wealth and privilege. Among them was a young woman, no older than 18, whose radiant beauty made her stand out even in her simplicity. Suddenly, a scream shattered the calm. "Help! Help!" one of the maids cried, her voice trembling. "The princess. She has fallen into the water." Kiriki turned just in time to see the princess struggling in the middle of the stream. The current was stronger than usual, churning like a hungry beast. She flailed her arms, her face barely breaking the surface before the waters dragged her under again. "Someone help her," the maid wailed, but none of the guards accompanying them dared to move. The stream was known for its treacherous undertows, and even skilled swimmers had been claimed by its depths. Kiriki's heart pounded in his chest. Memories of Addis flooded his mind, her laughter, her cries, her final moments. He couldn't save his sister, but maybe he could save this girl. His body acted before his mind could protest. "No, Kiriki," one of the slave boys shouted, grabbing his arm. "You'll drown." "I have to try," Kiriki said, his voice firm. He tore free and dove into the water. The moment he hit the icy water, panic gripped him. The current pulled at his frail body like an invisible hand, dragging him deeper. He wasn't a strong swimmer. He wasn't even a swimmer at all. But he kicked and trashed, forcing himself to move toward the princess, who was now barely visible, her arms reaching weakly above the surface. "Hold on," Kiriki yelled, though his voice was barely audible over the roar of the water. His lungs burned, his arms ached, but he pushed forward. The princess's head dipped under again, and for a terrifying moment, Kiriki thought he was too late. Then, by some miracle, his fingers brushed against hers. "I've got you," he gasped, wrapping his arm around her waist. The current fought against him as he struggled to keep her head above water. His own body screamed in protest, every muscle begging for relief. The shore seemed impossibly far away. "Don't let me go," the princess whispered weakly, her voice barely audible. "I won't," Kiriki promised, though he wasn't sure he could keep that promise. On the river bank, the maids screamed and pointed, their cries blending with the rushing water. The guards stood frozen, helpless and uncertain. "He'll never make it," one of them muttered. But then, through sheer willpower, Kiriki began to inch closer to the shore. His legs kicked furiously, his arm gripped the princess tightly, and his mind focused on one thought: save her, When they finally reached the shallows, Kiriki collapsed onto the muddy bank, dragging the princess with him. He coughed violently, water pouring from his mouth. The maids rushed forward, pulling the princess from his arms and laying her on the grass. "She's breathing," one of them cried. "She's alive." The princess opened her eyes, her gaze meeting Kiriki's. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. Kiriki nodded, too exhausted to speak. News of the rescue spread quickly, and by evening, it had reached the ears of the princess's father, King Olumide of Ikeduru. The king was a formidable man, known for his wealth and power. When he heard of his daughter's near death and the boy who had risked his life to save her, he ordered his guards to fetch Kiriki at once. Alhaji Musa was sitting in his courtyard when the royal guards arrived, their polished armor gleaming in the twilight. "What brings the king's men to my home?" Alhaji Musa asked, his voice laced with suspicion. One of the guards stepped forward. "We have come for the boy, Kiriki. The king wishes to reward him." Alhaji Musa frowned. "Reward? That boy is mine. He owes me a debt." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Are you refusing the king's order?" Alhaji Musa hesitated. He was a greedy man, but even he knew better than to defy the king. "Fine," he said grudgingly. "Take him." Kiriki was brought to the palace, where he stood nervously before the king. His tattered clothes and sunken cheeks contrasted sharply with the opulence around him, the golden throne, the shimmering chandeliers, the rich scent of jasmine in the air. The princess sat beside her father, her face glowing with gratitude. "Kiriti," the king said, his deep voice filling the room. "My daughter tells me you saved her life. Is this true?" Kiriti bowed his head. "Yes, Your Majesty. You risked your life to save hers, knowing you could have died." "Why?" Kiriti's voice trembled as he replied. "I couldn't watch her drown, Your Majesty. I lost my sister to sickness because no one could save her. I didn't want another family to feel that pain." The king was silent for a moment, his stern face softening. "You are a brave boy, Kiriti. A boy with a heart far greater than your circumstances." He turned to Alhaji Musa, who had been summoned to the palace. "How much does this boy owe you?" Alhaji Musa hesitated, sensing the shift in power. 100 naira, he said. The king scoffed. 100 naira? I will pay you 10 times that amount. But the boy belongs to me now. Alhaji Musa opened his mouth to protest but thought better of it. "As you wish, Your Majesty." The king stood. "Kelechi, from this day forward, you are no longer a slave. You will live here, in my palace, as one of my guards. Do you accept?" Tears filled Kelechi's eyes as he knelt before the king. "Yes, Your Majesty. Thank you." As he rose, his heart swelled with hope for the first time in years. News of Kelechi's rescue of the princess, and his subsequent transfer to the palace, eventually trickled back to Abkar. A woman returning from the market rushed to Ebil's hut, her voice trembling with excitement. "Ebil, Tijioke," she shouted, panting as she reached their compound. "Your son, Kelechi, the one you lost to Alhaji Musa." Ebil dropped the pot she was carrying, its contents spilling across the dusty ground. Tijioke froze where he sat, staring at the woman as if her words were a mirage. "What about Kelechi?" Ebil demanded, her voice sharp with both fear and hope. "He's no longer with Alhaji Musa," the woman said, her eyes wide with wonder. "The king of Ikediru has taken him into his palace. They say your son saved the princess from drowning in the river. The king himself declared him a palace guard." Ebil's hands flew to her mouth as her knees buckled. "Kelechi," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Tijioke stepped forward, his voice unsteady. "Are you sure? Are you certain it's him?" The woman nodded vigorously. "I swear it is true. I saw him with my own eyes when I passed through Ikediru. He was standing tall beside the princess, dressed in a new cloth, though still thin. The king has taken him in." Ebil collapsed to the ground, her cries rising into the air like a wounded bird. "Thank you, God," she sobbed. "Thank you for keeping my son alive." Tijioke knelt beside her, his strong hands trembling as he held her. Tears spilled freely down his weathered cheeks. "Our son. He's alive, Ebil. He's alive." Their hearts swelled with relief. A new fear gripped them. Kelechi was now the king's property, and no one in their culture approached the king without being summoned. To do so unbidden was to risk grave punishment. Moreover, the king had purchased Kelechi from Alhaji Musa, making him the rightful owner. "What can we do?" Ebil asked one evening as they sat by the fire. "I want to see him. I want to hold my son again." Tijioke stared into the flames, his jaw tight. "We cannot go to the palace," he said softly. "It is forbidden. If we anger the king, he may cast Kelechi out, or worse." Ebil clutched her wrapper, her tears soaking its fabric. "I miss him so much. Do you think he remembers us?" Tijioke's voice cracked as he replied. "How could he forget? We are his parents. But we must trust God, Ebil, alive this far." Days turned into weeks, and the longing to see Kelechi grew unbearable. Ebil's nights were restless, her dreams filled with visions of her son standing tall in the king's palace, his face older but his eyes still carrying the pain of his absence. One night, as the rain poured heavily on the thatched roof of their hut, Ebil knelt in the corner of their tiny home. Her hands were clasped tightly, her voice rising above the storm. "God of mercy, I thank you for sparing my son's life," she prayed, tears streaming down her face. But my heart aches for him, Lord. Please, grant him favor in the sight of the king. Let him remember the parents who love him. And if it is your will, bring him back to us." Dijioke joined her, his deep voice trembling as he added his own prayer. "Father, we are weak, but you are strong. Watch over our son. Protect him in that palace. And, Lord, touch the heart of the king. Let him see Kelechi not as a servant but as a child who belongs to his family." In the palace of Ikediru, Kelechi's life was both a blessing and a challenge. The king's favor protected him from mistreatment, but the weight of being in the royal court was heavy. He often thought of his parents, wondering if they knew where he was, if they prayed for him, if they still cried themselves to sleep as he sometimes did. One evening, as he stood guard by the palace gates, the princess approached him. Her delicate features were framed by the glow of the setting sun, but her eyes were filled with kindness. "Kelechi," she said softly, her voice breaking the silence. He straightened, bowing slightly. "Your Highness." "I've been watching you," she said, stepping closer. "You are quiet, but there is a strength in you that others don't see. Do you miss your family?" The question caught him off guard, and for a moment, he couldn't speak. His throat tightened, and he swallowed hard before answering. "Every day, Your Highness." Her face softened. "Do you think they know you are here?" "I don't know," he admitted. "But I pray they do." The princess hesitated before placing a hand on his shoulder. "You saved my life, Kelechi. I owe you more than I can ever repay. If there's anything I can do for you, tell me." Kelechi's eyes filled with tears, but he quickly blinked them away. "Thank you, Your Highness," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your kindness is enough." But deep down, his heart ached for home, for the embrace of his mother, the steady voice of his father, and the simple joy of being a boy in Abkar once more. The atmosphere in the palace had grown heavy with tension, though no one dared to speak of it openly. The once vibrant Princess Adanna had become a shadow of herself. Her laughter, which once rang through the royal halls, was now replaced with soft, muffled sobs heard late at night. Her parents, King Olumide and Queen Ezen, watched in growing worry as their daughter sunk deeper into despair. Adanna lay restless on her bed, her silken sheets tangled around her. She gripped them tightly as tears soaked her pillow. Her dreams were relentless, vivid flashes of Kelechi's face, his strong arms pulling her from the icy grasp of the river. His voice echoed in her mind, "I won't let you go." But the dreams always turned dark. In them, she found herself drowning again, her body sinking deeper as Kelechi stood helpless on the shore, bound by invisible chains. She would cry out for him, her voice raw and desperate. "Kelechi, please save me. Don't let go of me." And then she would wake, gasping for air, her chest heaving with the ache of unspoken words. One morning, the queen entered her daughter's chambers to find Adanna staring blankly at her reflection in the mirror. Her once radiant face was pale, her eyes hollow. "Adanna," Queen Ezen said gently, sitting beside her. "What is troubling you, my child? You have hardly eaten, and your nights are restless. Tell me what plagues your heart." Adanna's lips quivered, but she said nothing. How could she tell her mother that her heart belonged to a man she could never have? The queen sighed and stroked her daughter's hair. "Is it the marriage to Chief Ogbona's son? I know you have no feelings for him, but it is tradition. You must marry to strengthen the bonds between our families." Adanna shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "It's not that, Mama." "Then what is it, my daughter?" the queen pressed. Adanna hesitated, her hands trembling in her lap. "Mama, have you ever loved someone so much it feels like you cannot breathe without them?" The queen's eyes widened. "Adanna, who is it?" Adanna turned away, her voice barely a whisper. "I cannot say." In another part of the palace, Kelechi wrestled with his own turmoil. Every day he stood guard near the royal chambers, and every day he felt the weight of Adanna's gaze on him. She would look at him with a softness that made his heart ache, but he dared not meet her eyes for too long. He knew the consequences of such foolishness. "She is a princess," he told himself again and again. And I am nothing but a servant. Yet his heart betrayed him, filling with longing every time she passed by. He replayed the memory of her hand brushing his shoulder, the softness in her voice when she asked if he missed his family. But he knew the penalty for a palace guard falling in love with a member of the royal family: banishment at best, death at worst. The king grew increasingly concerned as Adanna's condition worsened. One night, her cries shattered the stillness of the palace. "Kiriti," she screamed from her bed, trashing wildly. "Don't let go of me. Please don't let go." The king and queen rushed into her chambers, their faces etched with worry. The maids tried to calm her, but Adanna was inconsolable. "Who is Kiriti?" the king demanded, his deep voice shaking the room. One of the maids hesitated before replying. "Your Majesty, Kiriti is one of the palace guards. The boy who saved the princess." The king frowned, his mind racing. He remembered Kiriti well, the brave boy who had risked his life to save his daughter. But why was Adanna calling his name in her sleep? The queen placed a hand on her husband's arm. "Olumide, we must speak with the boy. Something is not right." The king nodded reluctantly. "Bring him to me at once." When Kiriti was summoned to the royal chambers, his heart pounded like a war drum. He couldn't imagine why the king wanted to see him, but he feared the worst. "Kiriti," the king began, his piercing eyes fixed on the boy. "My daughter has been calling your name in her dreams. She wakes crying for you. What do you know of this?" Kiriti's mouth went dry. He dropped to his knees, bowing low. "Your Majesty, I swear I have done nothing inappropriate. I have only ever served you faithfully." The queen stepped forward, her voice softer. "Kelechi, we do not accuse you of anything. But we must understand why Adanna is so troubled. She refuses to tell us what is in her heart. Please, if you know anything, speak." Kiriti's voice trembled as he replied, "Your Majesties, I do not know why the princess calls my name. I would never dare." But his words faltered as Adanna appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears. "It's because I love him," she said, her voice breaking. The room fell silent. "Adanna," the king thundered, his face dark with rage. But she stepped forward, her chin trembling but her eyes defiant. "I love him, father. From the moment he saved my life, I knew he was the one. I cannot marry Ogbonna's son. My heart belongs to Kelechi." Kiriti looked up, his face a mask of shock and fear. "Your Highness, please." "Silence," the king roared. He turned to the guards. "Take him away. Lock him up until I decide his fate." "No," Adanna cried, throwing herself in front of Kelechi. "Father, please. Don't hurt him. This is my fault. I love him, but he has done nothing wrong." The king hesitated, his fury warring with the love he had for his daughter. "Take her to her chambers," he ordered the maids. "And take him to the dungeons." As Kelechi was dragged away, his eyes met Adanna's. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. Tears streamed down her face as she called after him. "Kelechi, I will save you. I promise." The palace grew colder in spirit, even as the sun blazed outside its walls. Queen Ezin sat in her chambers, her heart heavy with the torment of her daughter's cries and the sight of her husband's growing anger. Adanna was slipping further into despair, and Kelechi languished in the dungeons, yet the king seemed unyielding. That night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Queen Ezin made a decision. She could no longer remain silent. Her daughter's life, her very sanity, was at stake. Fearful but resolute, she went to the king's private quarters. The king, Olumide, sat at his desk, his expression grim as he examined royal documents. When the queen entered, he glanced up briefly, his brows furrowing. "Ezin, it's late. Why are you here?" She approached him, her hands clasped tightly. "Olumide, I need to speak with you about Adanna." The king sighed, leaning back in his chair. "If you've come to plead on behalf of that boy, you waste your breath." "It's not just about Kiriti," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "It's about our daughter, our only child. Olumide, can't you see she is dying inside? She has stopped eating. She spends her nights crying. She wakes from nightmares screaming his name. I fear we will lose her. The king's face darkened. She is young and foolish. She will recover in time. But what if she doesn't? Ezin pressed, stepping closer. What if forcing her to marry Chief Ogbona's son destroys her? Olumide, I beg you, let her marry for love, not duty. This tradition, this culture of forcing our children to marry for alliances, has caused nothing but misery. Shouldn't her happiness matter more than our ambitions? The king's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. Do you think I am blind to her suffering? Do you think this is easy for me? His voice rose, and for a moment, the queen shrank back. He stood, towering over her as he continued. You speak of love, but you forget the weight of this throne. You forget the reason for this tradition. Shall I remind you of what happened the last time a royal dared to defy this custom? Ezin's heart pounded, but she nodded, her voice faint. Tell me. The king began, his voice heavy with both anger and sorrow. Many years ago, my uncle's daughter, Princess Neka, fell in love with a commoner, much like Adanna. She defied her betrothal to a nobleman's son and secretly wed the man she loved. When the elders discovered her betrayal, they declared her marriage void and cursed her family. The curse did not end there. The nobleman's family demanded vengeance. They accused my uncle of failing to honor their alliance. That same year, they led a raid on the palace, killing Neka's husband and their infant child. Neka herself was dragged to the village square and stoned to death as a warning to others. The queen gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Olumide. But he wasn't finished. You ask me to discard tradition as though it is a simple matter. Do you not see the weight of the throne we carry? If Adanna defies this custom, it will not be just her who suffers. Our family will be branded as traitors to the elders. The people will rise against us. I will lose my throne, my life, and you may lose yours as well. Do you want that for our daughter? Ezin's knees buckled, and she sunk onto a nearby chair. Her voice trembled as she spoke. But Olumide, there must be another way. Must we sacrifice her happiness, her very life, for the sake of this tradition? The king's expression softened briefly, but his resolve remained unshaken. I love Adanna, Ezin. But as king, I must think beyond love. I must think of our people, our legacy. She will marry Chief Ogbona's son, as is her duty. The queen returned to her chambers that night, her body trembling with fear and anguish. She lay awake, her mind spinning with thoughts of Neka's tragic fate and the potential doom awaiting her family if Adanna refused to follow tradition. The weight of it all became too much to bear. By morning, Queen Ezin was too weak to leave her bed. Her ladies-in-waiting surrounded her, whispering in hushed tones as she lay pale and trembling. Send for the physician, one of them said. No, Ezin murmured, her voice barely audible. There is no cure for a broken heart. Adanna entered the room and burst into tears at the sight of her mother. Mawai, what is wrong? Please tell me. Ezin reached for her daughter's hand, her eyes filling with tears. My child, I am afraid for you, for your father, for us all. If you defy tradition, the consequences will be grave. But if you obey, I fear it will break your spirit. I don't know what to do. Adanna knelt beside her mother, her tears falling freely. Mama, I don't care about tradition or consequences. I love Kelechi. I cannot marry another man. Ezin's heart ached at her daughter's words, but she said nothing. She only held Adanna's hand, praying silently for a miracle. The tension in the kingdom was like a tightly wound string, ready to snap. Rumors of Princess Adanna's forbidden love had begun to swirl beyond the palace walls, carried on the tongues of palace workers and curious villagers. Whispers reached the Ogbonna family, and what was once a quiet storm became a raging tempest. It was a warm evening when a messenger arrived at the palace gates, carrying a sealed letter bearing the insignia of Chief Ogbonna's house. The guards ushered him into the king's presence. The messenger, a young but nervous man, knelt before King Olumide, holding out the scroll with shaking hands. The king took the letter from him, his expression unreadable. Without a word, He dismissed the messenger with a wave of his hand. The room was silent except for the rustling of the parchment as the king unrolled it. His eyes scanned the words, and with every line, his jaw tightened, his face darkening like a storm cloud gathering force. The queen, sitting beside him, saw his growing anger. "What is it, Olumide? What does the letter say?" Wordlessly, the king handed her the letter. Queen Ezin's hands trembled as she accepted it. She read silently, her lips moving slightly with the words, and her face paled. When she was done, she clutched the letter to her chest, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This is madness," she whispered. This boy dares to speak to you in such a manner." The king stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "It is not just madness, it is insolence. A child, no, an ungrateful brat, threatening me, a king. He has insulted my throne and my family. I will not let this go unanswered." The queen placed the letter gently on the table, her voice trembling. "Olumide, think carefully. This could lead to bloodshed. Perhaps we should speak with Chief Ogbonna before taking any action." The king's voice thundered through the room. "Speak with him? That child has already declared war. Does he think I am weak, that I will bow to his arrogance? I swear on this throne that Ogbonna will never marry my daughter, not unless he crawls to this palace and kisses the dust at my feet." Meanwhile, in Chief Ogbonna's household, tensions were equally high. When the younger Ogbonna, bold and impulsive, sent his threatening letter, he did so without his father's approval. "You fool!" Chief Ogbonna thundered when he learned of it. "Do you realize what you have done? You have insulted the king of Ibkar. You risk plunging our family, and our entire community, into ruin." "I did what you would not, father," the younger Ogbonna retorted, his voice defiant. "You sit and wait while your son's honor is dragged through the mud. I will not stand for it. You will not stand for it." Chief Ogbonna's voice was a low growl. "Do you think this is a child's game? Do you think the king will take your threats lightly? He could send his armies here tomorrow and wipe us out." "Let him try," the younger Ogbonna snapped. "I will face him head-on. If he will not give me what is mine, I will take it by force." Chief Ogbonna stared at his son, his face a mask of rage and disappointment. "You have brought shame to this family. I should have raised a wiser son." The message from the Ogbonna household spread like wildfire. Villagers in both communities began preparing for the worst. Some fled their homes, fearing the looming war. Others sharpened their weapons, eager to defend their land. Back in the palace, Adanna grew pale with dread as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. "Father," she said one evening, falling to her knees before the king, "I beg you, please, let me speak to Ogbonna. Perhaps I can convince him to see reason." The king looked at her, his expression softening briefly before hardening again. "You will do no such thing. That boy has insulted our family, threatened our kingdom, and disrespected me as a king. If he comes to this palace, it will be to beg for forgiveness, not to negotiate terms." "But father," Adanna pleaded, tears streaming down her face, "this is my life. Shouldn't I have a say in what happens to me?" The king's voice was firm but not unkind. "You are my daughter, Adanna. I love you more than life itself. But this is not just about you. This is about the throne, our people, our legacy. You must trust that I am doing what is best for all of us." The queen, however, was losing strength by the day. The stress and fear of impending war, combined with her worry for Adanna, were taking a toll on her health. She lay in her chambers, too weak to rise, her breath shallow and labored. "Ezin," the king said one evening, sitting by her bedside, "you must find your strength. I cannot fight this battle alone." She looked at him with weary eyes. "Olumide, I fear for us all. I fear for Adanna, for you, for this kingdom. What if this war destroys everything we have built?" The king took her hand, his voice steady. "It will not come to that. I will protect this family and this kingdom with my life if I must." But as the days passed and the full moon drew closer, the tension in the palace grew unbearable. The king's fury burned hotter, the queen's health declined further, and Adanna's tears flowed like a river. The moon hung low in the night sky, casting a silver glow over the palace as a light breeze rustled the curtains in Princess Adanna's chambers. She sat by the window, her once bright eyes now dim with longing and her heart heavy with thoughts of Kiriti. She could still see his determined face as he dove into the river to save her, a moment that had changed her life forever. But how could she save him from the dungeon, from a fate he didn't deserve? Her trusted maid, Nena, entered the room quietly. Nena was the one who had screamed for help when the princess was drowning and the one who had been at her side through every tear, every sigh, and every unspoken word since Kiriti's imprisonment. "My lady," Nena whispered, kneeling beside her, "I have an idea. It may be dangerous, but if you truly want to know him, if you want to help him, you must take this risk." Adanna looked at her with desperation. "What do you mean, Nena? What can I do? My hands are tied." Nena leaned in closer. "The leader of the prison guards, Ogdenvai, is a man who can be swayed with the right persuasion. If we offer him enough gold, he might allow you to visit Kelechi in secret. You could bring him food, speak with him, and learn more about the man who has stolen your heart." Adanna hesitated, her heart pounding. "What if we are caught? My father will never forgive me. Kelechi could be punished even more severely." Nena placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I would never suggest this if I thought it would bring you harm. Trust me, my lady. Ogdenmai is loyal to gold, not to the rules. If we are careful, no one will know." The princess closed her eyes, her mind racing. The thought of seeing Kiriti again, hearing his voice, and knowing the man behind the quiet strength gave her a flicker of hope. "Very well," she said at last. "Let us try. But we must be cautious." The next day, Nena approached Ogdenmai in the shadows of the palace grounds. The aging guard, with a scar running across his cheek and a greedy glint in his eyes, listened carefully as she spoke. When she slipped a small pouch of gold coins into his hand, he grinned. "You have my word," he said. "Twice a week, after the changing of the guards, I will allow her into the dungeon. But if anyone finds out, I will deny everything." Nena nodded, her heart pounding with both fear and determination. The plan was set.
That night, under the cover of darkness, Adanna wrapped herself in a plain shawl and followed Nena to the dungeon. Agadinma unlocked the heavy iron gate and motioned for them to enter. The air inside was damp and cold, and the flickering torches cast eerie shadows on the walls. Kelechi sat on the floor of his cell, his back against the stone wall. His once bright eyes had dulled, and his face was gaunt from days without proper food. When he saw Adanna step into the dim light, he rose slowly, disbelief etched on his face. "Your Highness," he said, his voice hoarse. Why are you here?" Adanna stepped closer, her heart aching at the sight of him. She placed the basket of food she carried on the ground and knelt before him. "I came to see you, Kelechi, to know you better, to understand the man who risked his life to save mine." He looked away, his fists clenched. "I am nothing, Your Highness. A prisoner, a slave. You should not be here." "You are more than that," Adanna said firmly. "You are brave, selfless. You have a heart unlike any I have ever known. Tell me about yourself, Kelechi. Your family, your dreams, everything." Kelechi hesitated, but the sincerity in her eyes broke down his walls. Over the course of that night, and the nights that followed, he shared his story. He spoke of his childhood in Abakar, of his late sister Adiz, and of the flood that destroyed his family's farm. He spoke of his parents, who had sacrificed everything to save him, and of his dream to one day build a life where they would never know hunger again. As Adanna listened, her admiration for him deepened. She saw not just a man, but a soul who had endured unimaginable pain, yet still held on to hope. "You are remarkable, Kelechi," she said one evening, tears in her eyes. "And I swear to you, I will find a way to free you and restore you to your family." Kelechi looked at her with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. "You owe me nothing, Your Highness. But your kindness is more than I ever expected. Thank you." The visits continued, and with each meeting, Adanna's health began to improve. She smiled more, laughed softly, and even hummed to herself as she walked the palace halls. The queen noticed the change and whispered her thanks to the gods, though she couldn't understand the sudden transformation. The king, too, was relieved, though his suspicion lingered. "You seem happier these days," the queen said to Adanna one morning. Has something changed? Adanna smiled, her heart dancing with a secret share. Perhaps I have found hope again, mother. That is all. But the secret meetings could not remain just a source of solace. Adanna and Nena began to devise a plan to free Kelechi. They knew it would not be easy, but they also knew that love and justice demanded action. My lady, Nena said one evening, if we are to help Kelechi, we must act before Adanna makes another move. The next full moon is only weeks away. What shall we do? Adanna's eyes shone with determination. We will find a way, Nena. Whatever it takes, I will not let him remain a prisoner any longer. The royal dining hall was quiet except for the faint sound of Princess Adanna's soft voice as she spoke to her parents. She had carefully rehearsed her words, knowing she had to tread delicately if her plan was to succeed. Father, mother, she began, her hands folded in her lap, her tone respectful but steady. I have been thinking deeply about my situation. I understand my duty as your daughter, and I do not wish to bring dishonor to our family or our traditions. King Alyamide leaned forward, in the calm demeanor of his daughter. Go on, Adanna, he said, his voice warm with curiosity. I am ready to meet the man you have chosen for me, she continued, lowering her gaze modestly. But I believe it would be wise for us to have a private meeting, just the two of us before any formal ceremonies. A marriage is a lifetime commitment, and perhaps if I could know him better, I might develop feelings for him. It would also reassure me of the wisdom in your decision. Queen Ezen looked at her husband, her face softening. She speaks wisely, Alyamide. After all, she is not rejecting the arrangement. She merely wants to understand her future husband. The king nodded slowly, his chest swelling with pride. You have spoken like a true daughter of the throne, Adanna. Intelligent and respectful. I will arrange for Adanna's son to come to the palace at once. Adanna lowered her head, concealing the spark of determination in her eyes. Thank you, father. I only wish to honor your decision. The next morning, a royal messenger arrived at Chief Adanna's compound with a scroll bearing the king's seal. The chief read the message aloud to his household. The king requests the presence of your son, Odion Adanna, at the palace tomorrow. He will meet the princess privately to begin the courtship. Odion, who had been lounging in the courtyard, immediately straightened, his face lighting up with excitement. Finally, father, he exclaimed. The princess herself wants to meet me. She has probably heard of my charm and my bravery. Chief Adanna exchanged a doubtful glance with his wife. Odion, he said cautiously, this is no ordinary meeting. You must carry yourself with dignity and wisdom. Embarrass our family. Embarrass? Odion scoffed, puffing out his chest. I will sweep her off her feet. Just watch. The following day, Odion arrived at the palace dressed in his finest robes, glittering with gold and jewels. He strutted into the hall with the confidence of a peacock, flashing a broad grin at everyone. The king welcomed him warmly, though Queen Ezen eyed him with quiet skepticism. Adanna entered the room gracefully, her poise perfect as always. She greeted Odion with a polite smile before gesturing toward a private chamber where they could talk. Shall we? She said. Odion followed her, his swagger evident. Once inside, the princess gestured for him to sit across from her. She began with a calm, warm tone. Thank you for coming, Odion. I wanted to take this opportunity to know you better. Tell me, what do you believe true love means? Odion blinked, caught off guard. True love? Well, he scratched his head awkwardly. True love is, when a man loves a woman, and they get married and have children. Adanna smiled faintly, her eyes sharp. I see. And what do you think is most important in a relationship, respect, communication, or shared goals? Odion shifted in his chair, sweat beginning to form on his brow. I think maybe respect. Or communication. No, wait, shared goals. Yes, that's it. Adanna leaned forward slightly. And how do you plan to show respect to your wife if you do not understand her needs? Odion opened his mouth, then closed it again, utterly lost for words. His confidence crumbled under the weight of her questions, and he began to fidget nervously. Adanna continued, her voice calm but unyielding. Marriage is not just about duty or appearances, Odion. It is about partnership, trust, and understanding. Do you believe you are ready for that kind of responsibility? Odion stammered, his face reddening. I don't know. Adanna's expression remained kind but firm. Thank you for your honesty. Odion left the palace that day feeling smaller than he ever had in his life. When he returned home, he stormed into the compound, his face dark with frustration. Odion, his father began. How did it go? Terribly. Odion snapped. Do you know what that princess did? She schooled me like I was a child. She asked me questions I couldn't answer, made me feel like a fool. And you know what? She was right. I am not ready for a woman like her." His mother gasped, while Chief Adanna stared at his son in disbelief. "What are you saying, Odion?" "I'm saying," Odion said, his voice trembling with anger and shame, "that you raised me to be arrogant and foolish. You never taught me about responsibility or love. You only taught me to chase after power and pride. Well, I'm done. I don't want the princess. She deserves better. I'll find my own wife when I'm ready, someone who will see me as I am, not as the fool you made me." Chief Adanna's face darkened with anger, but he said nothing, while his wife burst into tears. "Please like and subscribe." Back at the palace, Adanna reported the meeting to her parents. "He is not a bad man," she told them, "but he is not ready for this kind of responsibility." The king nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps you are right, Adanna. I will consider what must be done." As Adanna returned to her chambers, she felt a small flicker of hope. She had bought more time, and with it, a chance to execute her plan to save Kelechi. The night was unusually still, with only the faint rustle of leaves breaking the silence. Princess Adanna sat in her chambers, her heart weighed down by guilt and a determination that refused to waver. Across the room, Nena, her loyal maid, watched her mistress with concern etched into her face. "My lady," Nena ventured softly, breaking the silence, "you haven't touched your meal. You've barely slept these past nights. What troubles you so deeply?" Adanna looked up, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Nena, I cannot stop thinking about Kelechi's family. I fear they are suffering in ways I cannot even imagine. How can I eat or sleep while their pain remains unknown?" The maid hesitated. "But my princess, asking about his family is dangerous. If the king or anyone in the palace discovers your intentions, it could bring severe consequences." Adanna straightened in her chair, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. "I do not care for consequences, Nena. That man risked his life for mine, and his family has been left to bear the cost. I must know how they are faring. Will you help me?" Nena nodded, her loyalty unwavering. "Always, my lady." The following morning, Adanna summoned 2 of her most trusted palace guards to her private quarters. Their faces were a mix of curiosity and concern as they bowed deeply before her. "Your Highness," one of them began, "what do you require of us?" Adanna handed them a pouch filled with gold coins. "I need you to travel to the village of Abakar and locate the family of Kelechi, the man imprisoned by the king. Speak with them discreetly and learn of their condition. You are to breathe no word of this to anyone. Is that clear?" The guards exchanged uneasy glances before nodding. "Yes, Your Highness. We will not fail you." 2 days later, the guards returned. Adanna met them in the quiet solitude of the palace gardens, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and dread. She could tell from their downcast expressions that the news was far from good. "What did you find?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The elder guard stepped forward, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Your Highness, we located Kelechi's family. We were received by his father, Chijioke." Adanna's breath hitched. "And how are they?" The guard hesitated, as though weighing the burden of his words. "Not well, Your Highness. Chijioke is a broken man. He said they have endured unimaginable suffering since Kelechi was taken." Adanna's lips trembled. "Tell me everything," she urged. The guard's voice dropped, his tone laden with grief. "He told us about Kelechi's mother, Mama Adiz. She fought tirelessly to bring her son back, even selling all her wares and standing for weeks outside the palace gates, hoping for a glimpse of him. But one day, she was confronted by the palace guards. When she identified herself as Kelechi's mother, they mocked her and revealed that her son was imprisoned by order of the king. Then they chased her away, calling her a nuisance and a liar. Adanna's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no! Oh no!" The guard continued, his voice shaking. She returned home with the news, and the grief broke her. "She lost her mind, Your Highness. She now roams the market, singing a sorrowful dirge about her son. The villagers call her Adakil because of the songs she sings while begging for alms. It is a sight of unspeakable pain." Before he could finish, Adanna let out a strangled cry, collapsing to her knees. Her sobs filled the garden, raw and uncontrollable. Nena rushed to her side, trying to comfort her, but the princess was inconsolable. "Kelechi's mother is mad because of us," she wailed. "Because of me. Her son is suffering for saving my life, and now she is wandering the streets, lost to her grief." The guards and Nena looked on helplessly as Adanna's cries grew louder, her body trembling with the force of her anguish. The commotion soon reached the queen's ears, and she hurried to the gardens, her heart racing. She found her daughter crumpled on the ground, her face streaked with tears. "Adanna!" Queen Ezen cried, rushing to her. "What is the matter? Speak to me." Adanna clung to her mother, her sobs barely allowing her to speak. "Mother, I cannot bear it. They suffer because of me. His mother is mad, roaming the streets, because of me." The queen's face paled. "What are you talking about, child? Who is suffering?" Before Adanna could answer, the king arrived, his expression a mixture of concern and irritation. "What is this madness?" he demanded. "Why is my daughter crying in the middle of the palace like a commoner?" The queen rose, trying to calm him. "She is unwell, my lord. We must take her to the infirmary at once." The king frowned, his gaze lingering on Adanna's tear-streaked face. "Then see to it. But I expect an explanation when she recovers." Adanna was carried to the palace infirmary, where the royal physician attended to her. Her cries eventually subsided into quiet weeping as the queen sat by her side, holding her hand. "My daughter," the queen whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "you must tell me what is troubling you so deeply. I cannot bear to see you like this." Adanna turned her tear-stained face toward her mother. "It is Kelechi, mother. His family has been destroyed because of what we did to him. His mother, she is lost to her grief. And his father, he suffers in silence." The queen closed her eyes, her heart aching for her daughter and the broken family she spoke of. "We will find a way to make things right," she promised. But Adanna's resolve had already hardened. As she lay in her bed, a single thought consumed her. She would not rest until Kelechi and his family were reunited. Adanna sat in her chamber late into the night, her mind racing. Her heart ached with a heavy mixture of guilt and determination. For hours, Nena had begged her to rest, but Adanna dismissed every plea. Finally, the princess stood abruptly and turned to her maid. "Nena," she said, her voice steady despite the storm in her heart, "I will confront my father." Nena gasped, her hands flying to her chest. "My princess." "No. You know the king will not listen. Worse, he may see it as an act of rebellion. Please reconsider." Adanna's jaw tightened. "I can no longer sit back and watch innocent people suffer because of my silence. If I do not speak, I will be complicit in their pain. I must do this, Nena. It is my duty as a human being, as a daughter of this kingdom." Nena's eyes filled with tears. "If you must do this, my lady, promise me you will tread carefully. The king's temper." "I will handle my father," Adanna said, placing a hand on Nena's shoulder. "I need you to trust me." The next morning, Adanna dressed modestly, abandoning her usual regal adornments. She chose a plain white gown, symbolizing her sincerity. Nena followed behind her as she made her way to the king's chambers. The guards at the door announced her presence, and the king, seated at his table reading documents, looked up with mild surprise. "Adanna, what brings you here so early?" Adanna curtsied, keeping her eyes down. "Father, I beg an audience with you. It is a matter of great importance." The king motioned for her to approach, setting aside his papers. "Speak, my daughter. What troubles you?" Adanna took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them in front of her. "Father, I come to you not as a princess, but as a daughter of this land, pleading for the lives of those who have suffered under the weight of decisions made in this palace." The king's brow furrowed. "What are you saying, Adanna? Be clear." Adanna met his gaze, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "It is about Kelechi, father. The man who saved my life." The king's expression darkened immediately. "What of him? He is a prisoner, as he should be. Do not speak of him again." "Father, please." Adanna's voice broke. "You do not know what his family has endured because of this. His mother," she choked back a sob. "She has lost her mind, father. She wanders the market, singing dirges about her son, begging for alms. His father is a broken man. They are suffering because of us." The king slammed his hand on the table, startling both Adanna and Nena. "Enough! You dare accuse this palace of cruelty? Do you forget your place, Adanna?" Adanna dropped to her knees, her tears now flowing freely. "Father, I do not speak to defy you. I speak because I can no longer bear this burden. Kelechi is not a criminal. He is a hero. He saved my life, and now his family is paying the price for his kindness. How can we call ourselves rulers if we allow such injustice?" The king rose to his feet, towering over his kneeling daughter. "You speak of justice? The laws of this land are just. Kelechi is a commoner, and he dared to love a princess. Do you not see the chaos that would ensue if I allowed such disobedience? Adanna looked up at him, her eyes pleading. Father, this is not about chaos. It is about humanity. Kelechi did not ask to love me. His actions were born out of selflessness, not ambition. And I. She hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. I love him too. Please like and subscribe. Adanna took a step closer, her voice trembling but resolute. Father, if you force me into this marriage, you may secure the throne, but you will lose your daughter. I will not be the pawn in a game I did not choose to play. The king stared at her, his jaw tightening. Are you threatening me, Adanna? I am begging you, she replied, her tears falling freely. Please, father, find another way to secure the kingdom. Let me choose my own path, my own happiness. The king turned away from her, his shoulders slumping slightly. For a moment, he seemed almost human, almost vulnerable. But when he spoke again, his voice was firm. You are my daughter, Adanna, and as long as you live under my roof, you will obey my commands. This discussion is over. Adanna felt her heart shatter into a million pieces. She opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. Finally, she turned and left the room, her vision blurred with tears. Back in her chamber, Adanna collapsed onto her bed, her body shaking with sobs. Nena rushed to her side, holding her tightly. My princess, Nena whispered, her own voice choked with emotion. What did the king say? Adanna could barely form the words. He refuses to see reason. He would rather secure the throne than protect his own daughter's happiness. Nena tightened her grip. Then we must find another way, my lady. We cannot give up. Kelechi's life, your happiness, they are worth fighting for. Adanna wiped her tears, a spark of determination flickering in her eyes. You're right, Nena. If my father won't listen, then I will find another way to save Kelechi and protect this kingdom, even if it means defying the very traditions that bind us. It was a quiet evening in the palace, but within Adanna's chamber, the air was thick with tension. Nena sat close to the princess, her voice calm but firm. My princess, Nena began, I know how much this fight has weighed on you, but if you approach the king with nothing but defiance, he will shut you out again. Adanna sighed deeply, her fingers clenching the edge of her flowing gown. I've already tried reasoning with him, Nena. He won't listen. Nena leaned closer, lowering her voice. Then don't reason. Bargain. Offer him what he wants most, but make him meet you halfway. Give him a choice that benefits everyone. Adanna tilted her head, her curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Nena's eyes glimmered with determination. Tell the king you will agree to marry Odion on one condition. He must free Kelechi, send for his parents, and reward them for Kelechi's bravery. Make it clear that if he refuses, the consequences will not only hurt the family but the entire kingdom. Adanna hesitated. Do you think he'll agree? Nena smiled faintly. The king loves his kingdom and his legacy. If you frame it as a way to honor both, he won't refuse. But you must be resolute, my princess. Show him you mean every word. Adanna nodded slowly, her resolve hardening. Very well. I will speak with him tonight. Later that evening, Adanna requested a private audience with her father. The king, seated on his ornate throne, raised an eyebrow at her approach. What is it now, Adanna? He asked, his tone weary. Adanna took a deep breath and stepped forward. Father, I have come to bargain with you. This is my final plea. The king leaned back, his eyes narrowing. Bargain? Speak. Please like and subscribe. Adanna squared her shoulders. I will agree to marry Odion. I will uphold the tradition and secure the alliance you so desperately seek. But, the king's brow furrowed. But what? You must first release Kelechi from the dungeon, Adanna said, her voice steady. Send for his parents, his ailing father and his mad mother, and have them brought to the palace. Let the physicians care for them and reward them handsomely for Kelechi's bravery. Give them a house, a farmland, and a chance to rebuild their lives. The king's face darkened. And if I refuse? Adanna's tone turned icy. Then, father, I will burn this palace to the ground. I will leave this kingdom and take with me the respect of the people. Do not test me, father. You have seen what I am capable of when pushed to the edge. For a moment, silence filled the room, the weight of her words pressing heavily on the king. Finally he stood, his expression unreadable. You would defy your own father, your king, for the sake of a commoner? Adanna met his gaze without flinching. I would defy anyone for the sake of justice and humanity. But, father, this is not just about Kelechi. It is about honoring bravery, about setting an example for our people. Is that not what a true king should do? The king stared at her for a long moment, then sighed heavily. Very well. I will grant your request. Adanna's heart leapt, but she kept her composure as the king continued. I will send delegates to bring Kelechi's parents to the palace. They will be cared for and rewarded. Kelechi will be released, but... The king's eyes hardened. You will keep your end of the bargain. You will marry Odion without further complaint. Adanna nodded solemnly. I will, father. Thank you. The next morning, the king dispatched a high-ranking delegation to locate Kelechi's parents. When they reached the small, broken-down hut, they found Chijioke sitting by the door, his face etched with sorrow and exhaustion. Who are you? He asked warily as the officials approached. One of the delegates stepped forward, bowing slightly. We come on behalf of the king. He has sent us to bring you and your wife to the palace for medical care and a proper reward for your son's bravery. Chijioke's eyes widened. The palace? After all this time? Another delegate gently explained. Your son saved the life of the princess. His bravery has not gone unnoticed. The king wishes to honor your family. Chijioke hesitated, then asked, his voice breaking. And my wife? Will she be treated? She is. His voice trailed off as he gestured toward the village market. The officials exchanged a glance. She will receive the best care available, one of them assured him. At the market, the sight of the madwoman singing her sorrowful dirge brought tears to the officials' eyes. They approached her cautiously, speaking softly to avoid startling her. Madam, one of them said, we have come to take you to the palace. Your son's bravery has earned your family great honor. Adakil paused her singing, her eyes searching their faces as if trying to understand their words. Finally she whispered, Kelechi, my son? Yes, the delegate replied gently. He will be released, and you will be cared for. Once Chijioke and his wife were safely in the palace hospital, the king ordered Kelechi's release from the dungeon. The young man was brought to the royal chambers, his body weakened, but his spirit unbroken. The king studied him for a moment before speaking. Kelechi, do you know why you are here? Kelechi shook his head, his gaze steady despite his weariness. No, your majesty. You saved my daughter's life, the king said. For that, I am grateful. But you overstepped your place. A man like you has no business with a princess. Kelechi remained silent, his expression unreadable. The king leaned forward. I am releasing you, but hear me well. Stay away from Adanna. Focus on rebuilding your life. If you truly care for her, you will let her go. Kelechi's voice was quiet but firm. I will always honor your wishes, your majesty. But some things are not so easily forgotten. The king's gaze lingered on him before he waved a hand. You are free to go. The morning air in the palace hospital was cool, and sunlight streamed through the wide windows, casting golden beams across Ebel's bed. She stirred, slowly opening her eyes, as if waking from a long, dark dream. For the first time in years, her mind was clear, her heart lightened by the absence of the crushing grief that had weighed her down for so long. Chijioke sat by her side, his once frail frame now gaining strength after weeks of proper meals and care. His eyes glistened with unshed tears as he saw his wife regain her awareness. Ebel, is this real? Are you truly awake? He asked, his voice trembling. Ebel turned to him, her lips quivering into a smile. Chijioke, I can see you. I can hear you. It's real. Oh, my husband. She reached for his hand, and he held it tightly, as though afraid to let go. I thought I lost you, Chijioke whispered, tears rolling down his cheeks. The pain was too much, Ebel. I thought I would lose myself too. Ebel shook her head, her voice steady yet soft. You never lost me. Grief held me prisoner, but God has freed me. And now we will heal together. Please like and subscribe. The king had been true to his word. After their recovery, Ebel and Chijioke were escorted to their new home, a spacious house with sturdy walls, a clean yard, and more land than they had ever dreamed of owning. As they stepped into the compound, Ebel's eyes widened in disbelief. Chijioke, is this really ours? A royal delegate bowed and gestured toward the house. By order of His Majesty, this is now your home, and that land beyond the hill is yours to farm as you wish. Chijioke turned to Ebel, his voice breaking. We were beggars, mere shadows of ourselves. How can this be our reality now? Ebel clasped her hands, tears streaming down her face. It is God's mercy, Chijioke, and the bravery of our son, Kelechi. This is his doing. The true joy of their new life came a few days later, as they were still settling into their home. The news reached them that Kelechi, their long-lost son, would be coming to see them. Ebel was pacing the courtyard, her hands clutched to her chest. Is it true? Will I truly see him again? Chijioke placed a calming hand on her shoulder. Patience, my love. He will come. Our son will come. Then they heard footsteps, and a guard called out, Kelechi has arrived. Ebel froze, her heart pounding. Chijioke stepped forward, his voice breaking as he called out, Kelechi, my son. When Kelechi stepped into the courtyard, his face weary but his eyes filled with emotion, Ebel let out a cry and ran to him. My son! My son! Kelechi fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he embraced his mother. Mama! I'm home. I'm here. Chijioke joined them, his strong arms wrapping around both of them. Kelechi, you've come back to us. You're home. For a long time, they stayed there, a family reunited in tears and joy. That evening, as they sat together in their new home, Ebel prepared a simple meal with Chijioke's help, something they hadn't done in years. Kelechi watched them, his heart swelling with gratitude and sorrow. I never thought I'd see this day, he said quietly. Ebel turned to him, her eyes soft. Neither did we, my son. But God has a way of turning pain into joy. Chijioke